In the unforgiving landscape of Hollywood, where a star's worth is often measured in box office receipts, one man stood as a towering paradox. He was Thomas "Tiny" Lister Jr. This was a man whose career spanned over 250 acting credits, starring in some of the biggest money-making franchises to ever hit the screen, yet his presence was terrifying. At 6 feet 5 inches and nearly 300 pounds, with a deep voice and a signature lazy eye, he was the definition of an on-screen menace. But the true story of Tiny Lister Jr. is not about the characters he played, but the battle he won internally. He was born blind in his right eye due to a detached retina, a physical marker he once hated, wearing dark shades for years out of shame. The moment he cast those shades aside in a leap of faith, his life changed. His flaw became his fortune, his lazy eye transformed into a cinematic trademark, a story he often told of God turning a curse into a blessing. He was known to the world as Deebo and Zeus, but to those who knew him, he was simply a gentle giant. His legendary laugh followed a terrifying glare, a perfect metaphor for his entire life and career. But what is the cost of wearing that mask of a bully for decades? And how did the trauma of his youth finally catch up to the man who preached faith and self-care in his final years? The man the world knew as Tiny Lister Jr. was born Thomas Lister Jr. on June 24, 1958, in Compton, California. His father drove a truck, his mother managed the home, and Tom was the second of 4 children. Compton in those days was a powder keg, a place where street gangs, shootouts, and the rising tide of crack cocaine offered young men a brutal path. Yet, the foundation of the future gentle giant was built on avoiding that very chaos. From birth, Tiny carried a secret burden. He was blind in his right eye, a result of a detached and deformed retina. This physical anomaly, his iconic lazy eye, was not a badge of honor in his youth, it was a target. Growing up, he faced constant torment, bullied and chased home by boys who mocked his appearance. He confessed that he was so ashamed, he hated the eye and, in a moment of deep spiritual despair, he hated God for that. It wasn't until his mother finally told him he had to stand up for himself and fight back that he began to turn the corner. Compton was unforgiving, and Tiny Lister Jr. bore witness to the absolute worst of it. He attended high school alongside Crips gang leader Tookie Williams. He recalled a terrifying day when a shootout at his school left 13 people injured. The lockdown that followed led to the discovery of 30 to 40 guns. Even the teachers were armed. In that environment, Tiny made a conscious choice to become a loner and pursue a legitimate outlet, sports. He found his calling in track and field, specifically the shot put. This was where his imposing frame, currently close to 300 pounds, first became an asset rather than a liability. His ambition wasn't Hollywood, it was Washington, D.C. His dream was to work for the Secret Service, protecting the President of the United States. He was a student, a focused athlete, not the neighborhood Deebo he would one day portray. After high school, he channeled his massive strength and focus into Long Beach City College and Cal State. In the world of college athletics, Thomas Lister Jr. dominated, breaking school records 7 times in a single year and becoming a national shot put champion. It was his college coach who first affectionately dubbed him Tiny, an ironic nickname that stuck due to his enormous size. His size and power naturally drew attention from the National Football League. The Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers both showed interest. Tiny could bench press over 500 pounds, He was NFL ready. But fate intervened. He hurt his leg right before a scheduled tryout, and later claimed he was hampered by a bad agent. He played briefly for the New Orleans Breakers in the USFL but was released after just 2 games. The Secret Service dream was over, and the path to the NFL had closed. Disillusioned, he returned to bouncing at a nightclub. It was there he had the chance encounter that truly redirected his trajectory. He met Walter Hill, the famed director of The Warriors and 48 Hours. Hill saw the powerful potential of Tiny's presence and cast him in the 1986 film Blue City. From that moment, acting became his full-time obsession. Yet, this ambition met resistance at home. Tiny Lister Jr. revealed that his parents spoke death on his name, telling him to quit acting and find a real job. He had to cut ties with them, leaning only on the support of his beloved grandmother. She had worked as a maid for actress Lucille Ball, a subtle connection to the industry he now sought to conquer. The spiritual and physical turning point came when he decided to embrace his most visible flaw. He stopped hiding his lazy eye. He realized that in a world of standardized beauty, his unique look made him memorable. When the roles started coming in, he understood the truth. You thought your eye was a curse, but it really was a blessing. The shame vanished, replaced by a profound religious conviction that his entire life was part of a divine plan. The gentle giant had found his confidence, and Hollywood was next. With newfound confidence, the physically imposing Tiny Lister Jr. leveraged his unique appearance and the captivating mystery of his lazy eye into a string of villainous roles throughout the late 1980s. He appeared in films like Armed and Dangerous with John Candy and Beverly Hills Cop 2 with Eddie Murphy, quickly establishing himself as Hollywood's go-to brute. Yet, his first true cultural explosion came not from a traditional film set, but from the wrestling ring. The year was 1989, and Lister was cast in the film No Holds Barred, an unapologetic vehicle for wrestling superstar Hulk Hogan. Lister's character was Zeus the Human Wrecking Machine, a role perfectly tailored to his size and menacing presence. To secure the part, Lister said he bulked up intensely, taking steroids, getting a haircut with a Z shaved on the side, and donning custom boots that proclaimed his villainous identity. He was so committed that Vince McMahon, the head of WWE, immediately recognized his potential. The movie, despite receiving bad reviews, performed well at the box office and, today, has reportedly grossed over $100 million. The power of the wrestling machine was undeniable. McMahon immediately transitioned Lister's character, Zeus, into the actual WWF. Tiny Lister Jr. became a global phenomenon, drawing millions of eyes to the screen. The professional wrestlers in the locker room, men like Andre the Giant, were reportedly jealous that an actor, not a true wrestler, was getting top billing and massive paydays simply for fighting Hogan. The fame brought a surreal level of attention. White children began drawing pictures of Lister, the black villain, with his foot on Hulk Hogan's throat, seeing him as a hero. He had toy action figures made of him, and the intensity of the rivalry was so palpable that Lister began receiving death threats from Hulkamania fans. It was during this peak of fame that Lister faced his most disturbing, and frankly, life-altering confrontation with power. He was approached with a legitimate offer of $1 million to fight a rival outside of the ring. When Vince McMahon got wind of this, strange things began happening. Police started pulling Tiny Lister Jr. over without cause and threatening him. This was the chilling moment the gentle giant recognized the true powers that be, the dangerous realization that the legitimate world held more power than the streets of Compton. He knew then that he had to stay strictly in his lane and obey. Hulk Hogan eventually pulled the plug on the Zeus character, but the actor's career was just getting started. Tiny Lister Jr. continued to grind, working with industry heavyweights like Jean-Claude Van Damme in Universal Soldier and in TV shows like Matlock and Fresh Prince. But the role that truly cemented his legacy as a cultural icon and, ironically, defined him as America's favorite bully, came in 1995, Deebo in the comedy Friday. Ice Cube, who needed a big monster-type guy for the neighborhood bully, chose the seasoned actor. Lister based the character on a friend from Compton named Big U. The film, shot in just 21 days on a modest $3.5 million budget, grossed over $30 million. Tiny Lister Jr. only received about $20,000 for the role, but the cultural value was priceless. Deebo was an immediate legend, defining the cinematic image of the neighborhood menace who could be terrifying, yet strangely endearing. The decade closed with Tiny Lister Jr. reaching the absolute pinnacle of diverse Hollywood success. He was cast as the President Lindbergh, the first black president, in Luc Besson's blockbuster The Fifth Element. He collaborated with hip-hop legends from Tupac in Gang related to Dr. Dre, Eminem, and NWA in music videos. He even appeared in The Dark Knight, a film that would go on to gross over $1 billion. The gentle giant had successfully turned the curse of his lazy eye and the shame of his youth into an unstoppable Hollywood force, achieving a 30-year career with 250 credits. But the challenges of the streets he thought he had left behind were about to return with devastating force. The success of Tiny Lister Jr. was astronomical, allowing him to transition from the difficult life of Compton to the opulent, yet treacherous, landscape of wealth. But the lack of financial literacy and a naive trust in others, a vulnerability perhaps surprising for America's favorite bully, led to a crushing downfall. In 2012, the world learned that the gentle giant had fallen into deep trouble. He was charged in federal court with conspiring to commit mortgage fraud, a scheme that resulted in a staggering $3.8 million in losses. He was facing up to 5 years in a federal prison. The painful truth emerged: Tiny Lister Jr. had been betrayed. He claimed that his real estate managers and lawyers were crooked, using his name and influence to secure mortgages for 4 houses he couldn't afford. The goal was to cash in on $1.1 million in home equity credit lines based on the property's values. It was a sophisticated scheme, far removed from the simple street fights of his youth, yet ultimately just as devastating. In a move that shattered his reputation, he pleaded guilty and chose to cooperate fully with the feds, the IRS, and the FBI to avoid prison time. He owed massive restitution payments and was sentenced to community service. However, according to his cousin, Vincent Brantley, the cooperation didn't keep him completely free. Tiny Lister Jr. did, in fact, end up serving time in prison, estimated to be about 2 to 3 years, and tragically, lost everything. The man who had become the cinematic symbol of unstoppable force, Deebo, was reduced to a public debtor and an inmate. Speaking later about the situation, he sugarcoated the pain, taking the blame but acknowledging that bad people had tried to use him. Yet, the experience was a severe, real-world beating, a harsher reality than any wrestling ring confrontation. The legal and financial crisis brought a new, life-threatening crisis: health. Around this time, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. This health scare forced a spiritual and physical transformation. The former wrestler began changing his diet and dedicating himself to ministry, shifting his focus to preaching about the importance of taking care of one's body. He spent time speaking to kids, gang members, and prison inmates about religion, staying out of trouble, and becoming a positive role model. The gentle giant had found a new stage. But even his private life was fractured under the weight of fame and pressure. In 2019, a small, yet telling, moment of chaos was broadcast live to the world. He was caught arguing with his girlfriend on Instagram Live, and when he tried to take the phone, she urged viewers to call the police. Though no charges were pressed, it was a public display of vulnerability that showed the strain he was under. He ended the relationship shortly after. As 2020 began, the seasoned warrior seemed to be stabilizing, lending his voice to cartoons like The Cleveland Show and the blockbuster Disney movie Zootopia. He even started directing his own movies with his daughter, the person he cherished most and often spoke about, especially since he never fully reconciled with his own family. Then, the global storm hit. In August 2020, Tiny Lister Jr. was diagnosed with COVID-19. He managed to beat the virus, stating he felt better, and he was eager to continue working. He even mentioned looking forward to getting the vaccine. But the battle had worn him down, and the consequences of his pre-existing condition, coupled with the residual effects of the virus, were still lying in wait, ready for the final, sudden attack. The final chapter of the gentle giant's life arrived with a swiftness that shocked Hollywood. On December 10, 2020, Thomas Tiny Lister Jr. was found unresponsive in his apartment, succumbing to what was initially reported as natural causes, likely complicated by his diabetes and the recent battle with COVID-19. He was 62 years old. The events leading up to his death paint a heartbreaking picture of a proud man too weak to seek help. 5 days before he died, Lister confided in friends that he felt weak and was having trouble breathing. He canceled his first scheduled day of filming for a new movie, an unusual act for an actor who never missed shooting a movie. Complaining of severe illness, he chose to self-quarantine instead of getting tested for COVID-19 or visiting a doctor. His condition rapidly deteriorated. Just a couple of days before his passing, he had to cancel a virtual appearance for a TV festival because he was struggling to speak. His manager, deeply concerned, sent an assistant to check on him, bringing vitamins and a Z-Pack. Friends and family attempted to reach him the next day, but their calls went unanswered. When a friend finally visited the apartment and received no response, the police were called, and the tragic discovery was made. The man who terrified millions as Deebo died alone, quietly, in his home. The American entertainment landscape reacted with profound sorrow. Ice Cube, the man who cast him as America's favorite bully, mourned the loss of a born entertainer, who could pop into character at the drop of a hat, terrifying people on and off the camera, but followed that with a big smile and laughed. Lister's death cast a shadow over the future of the Friday franchise. He had been set to reprise his role in the long-anticipated Last Friday, a film Ice Cube said was to be built around the Deebo character, offering Lister his biggest payday ever. It was a cruel irony that just as he was set to receive the financial recognition he truly deserved for his most iconic role, his life was cut short. His passing also highlighted the painful reality for the Friday cast, many of whom, like Bernie Mac, John Witherspoon, and A.J. Johnson, are now gone. The echo of that terrifying laugh now only serves as a profound reminder of the cultural giant we lost. Some stories end without closure. But dignity doesn't need applause. The abrupt departure of Tiny Lister Jr. left behind not just a hole in Hollywood, but a profound, lingering question about the true cost of fame and the fragility of the human body, especially when ravaged by disease. His legacy is immortalized in two archetypes, the cartoonishly monstrous Zeus and the universally recognized, menacing figure of Deebo. For those of us who grew up watching Friday, Deebo wasn't just a bully, he was a force of nature, America's favorite bully, a character whose mere presence could command a scene. Yet, the man behind the menace, the gentle giant, spent his final years seeking redemption and sharing a spiritual truth, that his most visible flaw, his lazy eye, was a divine gift. He turned his own vulnerability into a beacon of resilience. Tiny Lister Jr. may be gone, but the echo of his unique, terrifying laugh still reverberates, forever connecting him to a golden era of black cinema and culture. His story is a powerful testament to survival, ambition, and the ultimate, difficult surrender to forces larger than any man, even a giant. To anyone who's ever stood alone, who felt like an outsider because of how they look, we see you. We see the fight it took to get here. If the stories of Tiny Lister Jr., the man who brought Deebo and Zeus to life, reminds you of the strength it takes to embrace your flaws, please share your favorite memory in the comments below. Was it a line from Friday, or a moment from the ring? Tell us your favorite Deebo moment. We read every comment. If you want more stories about the legends of black culture who fought their own battles on and off the screen, then hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of Hollywood's true gentle giants. Rest in peace, Tiny Lister Jr.